Welcome to the farm. Actually, I'm out here at our neighbor's farm, and they graciously allowed us to shoot a video here of the steers because my family actually doesn't raise steers anymore, even though I keep asking them to try to get a few. But in today's Chore Chat, we're actually going to talk about demonstrating responsibility. My grandparents, as collaborative leaders, did a great job of setting a great example for us to follow, modeling the way, leading by example. And one of those chores that was really prevalent in which they did that is doing the chores, or what we called feeding the cattle. Our grandpa actually called it doing the chores. But to help explain what it means to do the chores and feed the cattle, I'd like to invite my cousin, Brett Stekovich, out here for this chore chat today and talk a little bit about doing the chores or feeding the cattle. So, hey, Brett, how you doing?
Good morning. Good morning, everybody.
Thanks for doing this Chore Chat with me today. I greatly appreciate it. But the first question I have for you, Brett, is can you walk us a little bit through the routine that Grandpa and Grandma had when it came to getting up in the morning and actually feeding the cattle?
Sure. Well, the big thing is just like you said, it's a routine. It's a routine that requires you not to be sick at any time. I mean, you have to be ready to take care of the cattle. They're ready. They have to eat every single day, twice a day actually. So one of the big things is with routine is Grandpa would always get up pretty early, about 5:30, 5 o'clock in the morning and everything, because the cattle were getting ready and getting hungry, pretty early on. So that was a big thing. He used to drive down between where he lived and where the place where we did raised all the cattle and everything. They're in two separate places, and there was actually a lane that connected them. So he'd get up early and he'd drive over every single morning. Bright and early.
And in the evening, right? Because they fed the cattle in the morning and in the evening.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, thanks for sharing that. Can you tell me a little bit about feeding the steers? What did that process look like?
Yeah, feeding the steers, it was all about, responsibility and, being reliable. And what we used to do and what he used to do is we had a couple silos full of silage and we had some full of corn. And then you had some vitamin supplements and, some things of that nature. But Grandpa would always come up and he'd get all the augers started. He had a system that back in the mid-1950s, late 50s was fairly new. It was an automated system. So he had a series of augers and everything that carried the feed out throughout the barnyards and the barns and the different areas to feed the cattle.
Yeah, I actually remember seeing an article when the Toledo Blade actually came out and interviewed him, because it was one of the first times a farmer actually out in this area leveraged that automation. But one of the best memories that I have from Grandpa and Grandma doing the chores is obviously Grandma getting up in the morning, like you said, making breakfast, getting everything ready, and Grandpa sitting on the back porch, buckling up his manure boots, and like you said, heading down the lane. And then, one of the things I always remember is he always asked us to, as kids, to break the ice in the water tank where during the winter it would freeze, because they would always typically raise their steers during the winter, not so much during the spring, right?
Yeah.
But what was your favorite memory of doing the chores with Grandpa and Grandma?
Well, I mean, that was a big one. Getting in the water was, just like you said, was an important part in making sure that everything was running and good. And then also taking a look at the cattle every morning, just to make sure that all the cattle were up or moving. You didn't look and notice that there was somebody that was sick or a cattle that was sick, because later after we fed the chores, we would have to isolate them and take care of them, give them some medicine and stuff. But one of our big responsibilities too was getting the hay out of the hay mound, because that was a part of feeding and doing the chores also too, and feeding the cattle. So we were required to go up, and usually we get a couple bales of hay out and put them in the mangers and everything like that as part of the morning, we'll call it breakfast.
Exactly. Another one of my favorite memories is that little red light. You want to talk a little about the red light that we used to watch?
Yeah, absolutely. Grandpa's auger system actually, when it went through the systems, it would actually go into a different barn and you couldn't see the end of it. And it was very hard to see, so you couldn't see, especially with the cattle feeding on both sides. You would have to look for this light that he had set up, and which is pretty much just a sensor. And when it got to a certain length in the auger and everything, it would turn a red light on,
once
telling
that
Grandpa.
Actually kind of just spilled over and got to the certain end, it would trigger a sensor, and this red light would come on, and as kids, Grandpa would say, hey, make sure you come down and tell me to shut off the auger so the silage don't spill off on the ground. So
correct.
But you know, doing the chores, learning how to demonstrate responsibility by, you know, watching Grandpa and Grandma do the chores every morning, like you said, whether they were sick or not, they were up doing those chores. You know, what did you learn from that? You know, that you apply to your, you know, your work today. What did you learn from doing the chores and feeding the cattle?
Sure. I mean, one of the big things that you learn is just responsibility, you know, for that, even beyond yourself. I mean, you've got to take care of, you know, the cattle. And so responsibility was a big part of it. And also, you know, just accountability. You know, you learned accountability and everything as part of doing the chores and everything like that, for sure.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you coming out here and doing this chore chat with me.
You bet.
Nice job. Round of applause if you can for my cousin Brett. But before we go, I just want to say one thing that Grandpa would always say when it came to doing the chores every morning. If the cows are going to get fed, he would always say, if it is to be, it is up to me. So thanks for listening to this chore chat. Until next time, always remember to dream big, lead wisely, and always follow smart. I'll see you in the next video.